When this started, I confess I did not understand. I guess maybe that's how it all turned out to be. Well, such a mess.
If you're new here, welcome. I'm Betsy Burris, a teacher, educator, and psycho coach. Every week, I podcast or write on Substack about using your emotions to feel better and teach better. Sometimes you'll hear stories of educators as told to me or sent into the Teaching Through Emotions hotline, all of them discussed with me and my co-host, Joe Johnson. And sometimes you'll hear an interview with someone who offers an interesting perspective on teaching and learning. We unpack it all here on the feed and on Substack. I'm so glad you're here. So, hello, listeners. We're back. We're back with a very exciting co-hosted episode today with Joe, of course, my buddy, but also another buddy, someone that Joe and I have taught. We taught a long, long time ago, named Sarah. Hello, Sarah.
Hi.
We are so excited to be talking to Sarah today about a topic that we haven't talked about ever before, which is kind of like having an extra adult in the room. So we're going to be running this one today as a TSG, a teacher support group, which means Joe and I, as the two co-facilitators who outnumber the people in the TSG, that would be Sarah. Sarah's going to tell her story. She's going to start telling us what's going on. We're going to be asking questions. Eventually, we're going to try to formulate some frame that might help Sarah deal with whatever is going on with her, and then possibly come up with a plan or plans of action that Sarah feels like she could actually try. So it's going to be a simulated TSG with two co-facilitators and one teacher, which is not like anything else. But I just want to say, before we begin, that Sarah was in the very, very first TSG that I ever ran back in 2006.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
2006, or maybe spring. No, fall. It was fall.
Wow.
Right? First year that I was in my social work program. It was a doozy, I have to say. I don't think I did the greatest job, but on the other hand, I just made it up. And as Sarah pointed out, it was the first TSG ever in the history of the world.
It
The
was.
first car is not the best car. The first
Exactly.
airplane was not the best airplane.
There will be backfires, yes.
Yeah, no, I remember it fondly overall, but it just goes to show, I think, it doesn't take much to scratch the surface of what's going on with teachers for some stuff to erupt.
Yeah, exactly.
Very true.
It's very interesting. Anyway, so that's a really, really fantastic fact about this particular episode. So I'm just going to say, I guess, Sarah, if you want to tell more about yourself, we're protecting your confidentiality, so we don't need to say a whole lot more. But why don't you just begin with what you want to say to us? And Joe and I are going to sit back and puff on our pipes as we think about, this is what's going on.
I love it. Thanks, y'all, for letting me chat with you.
Thank you.
On these
Thank
ideas.
you. It's great
I
to
always
see you
look
again.
forward to both of you. It's good to see you guys too. So I'm in higher ed, and I would say my background is in education. Curriculum design is probably the most fun I have at my job. And right now I'm finding myself, what I'm doing is teaching college level Spanish, and I'm designing the courses as well. And I always have a TA. It's part of my job because I'm one of the course designers that I have a TA. And I've been in this job for about a decade at this point. So that's 20 semesters. So that's about 20 TAs that I've had.
Wow. You're experienced.
And once in a while, I'll have them back to back. But generally speaking, it's a one and done semester deal, which is part of the challenge, right? Because it's presented to me in my contract as a perk. You're doing all this course design stuff.
Of course.
You get a TA.
Yeah, you get help.
Depending on the TA, during the pandemic, there were a couple of times where I had TAs back to back to back, and it just stayed stable, and it actually did make my job a lot easier. But depending on the TA and how much background they have in education and a whole bunch of other factors, it actually becomes a lot more work.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's that component to it, which is more of the institutional understanding about how teaching works and how if you add up all of these tasks, theoretically, two people will make it easier. But then there's the piece that's more emotional to me too, which might be equally or even more interesting to unpack. And that part is that there are two issues there. One is that, Betsy, the way you said it, having an extra adult in the room when you're teaching is hard.
Yeah.
Especially depending on the adult. And my TAs, with some exceptions, have been phenomenal in so many ways. But the issue to me is if I'm taking a risk with students, or I'm trying to give students a lot of freedom to take ownership, or we're doing something and I don't quite know how it's going to go, and we're waiting and seeing, that extra observer really alters the dynamic.
Yeah.
And it messes with me because it makes me sometimes want to take fewer risks with my students because I have this extra person who's like, wait a minute, what is she doing? There's this extra pull away from what's going on between me and my students that's, I think, distracting for everyone.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're teaching two classes at the same time.
Yeah, it feels like that sometimes. And I'm teaching them both at the same time. They're messing with one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
The second piece of the emotional piece is the power differential, because I'm the person institutionally in power, but I'm a white woman who's a non-native speaker of Spanish. I'm really comfortable with that. Like in my job, I'm here. I mean, Spanish is really good. It's not native-like. Better than it needs to be for teaching and designing the level I am. But I often have a native speaker. And it's often a man. So depending on where they're from, I might not understand them at 100% all the time. There might be phrasings that I phrase a certain way that sounds awkward to them. And maybe it's because they are awkward, or maybe it's because they're not used to where my Spanish is coming from.
Right.
There's a little bit of messiness there at the same time. So all of this stuff makes me often be like, ugh, like this person, like, and I mean, right now I'm thinking about my current TA, but this has happened again and again and again. Like this person is doing nothing wrong, but they don't have educational training. They don't know how to teach language. They've been thrown into this. I'm supposed to teach them. It is hard for me in so many ways. Like I wish I didn't have one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have the option of telling the institution you don't want one?
No, because it's all hooked up in how things are funded, right? Like,
oh, yes, of course.
Grad students are here and we're supporting
We
them.
got to give them jobs.
And they are themselves students of Spanish or of education?
Usually Spanish, and I would say more than half the time from outside of the United States, coming from a Spanish-speaking country. So they probably show up and half the time are like, who is this lady?
Yeah.
And I feel comfortable and confident that I'm in the position that's absolutely right for me. But I also find myself feeling like I have to prove it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So they're studying Spanish, meaning they're going for Spanish literature, Spanish history, not Spanish language teaching.
Definitely not, with few exceptions, not teaching. Sometimes there's like people who are interested in language acquisition, but it's usually literature or linguistics.
Yeah.
That's the usual path for becoming a professor at the university level.
Yes, exactly.
Is that you are a literature person or sometimes a linguistics person, even though that I think is a large part of what justifies your position at the university is teaching the language. You sometimes get very little training in doing that.
Yes.
And your interview takes that very little into account, if at all, for a lot of these jobs. So,
and I just want to say more generally, and also related to your first point, Sarah, the institution's understanding of teaching is often lagging far behind in this respect too, that the vast majority of faculty who come to colleges and universities are content experts. They're fantastic writers, they're fantastic thinkers, they're creative, they're passionate, but they don't necessarily know how to teach, as opposed to language. People who come to colleges and universities with PhDs in language instruction, in second language acquisition, generally know how to teach because that's part of what you are trained to do. That's what you're expected to do. This differential is interesting to me. And what you were saying, Sarah, about the institutional, I wrote misunderstandings about teaching, that giving you an extra adult is going to make things easier for you. It's also, I think, fundamentally true that so many higher education institutions don't understand that the people they're hiring aren't necessarily ready to teach. They're going to have to figure it out themselves. And that's generally what they do, is figure out what works for them. And I wonder about these TAs in your classroom who are figuring out how to teach themselves and have no idea how to translate what you're doing to whatever it is that they're trying to figure out for themselves.
Yeah. I think what ends up happening a lot, if you uncover it, there's this, oh, but they get to be a TA. So because of this experience, once they have to teach a class by themselves, they're going to be great at it.
So the understood that it's good experience for them in terms of teaching.
I mean, theoretically, I think that's what the department or the institution might be saying, like, hey, you're going to get a teaching assistantship. So we're going to train you. And then eventually, in my particular setting, once they have a certain number of graduate credit hours, they have their own course as well. Like they're the instructor of record. But from the institution, what the TA is hearing is I'm going to be a teaching assistant, but it's like a training position. I'm going to learn how to be a teacher. That's what they're hearing, which sounds great.
Wow.
And then what I'm hearing is, hey, you have a TA to help you.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
They can make copies and they can, oh boy, I have so many questions. Are there days when you just sort of say, okay, on Tuesday, you're teaching the class and I'm observing you? Or do you then plan a class together? How does it work?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? And part of it is me maybe needing to let go a little bit. But I know we're not throwing a new teacher into this. We're throwing somebody who has a bachelor's degree from, for example, in anthropology from Mexico into teaching 50 minutes at an accelerated high expectations class. So I'm trying to balance what I think is ethical, for lack of a better word, for my students.
Right.
Knowing that if I do this, it's going to be at like 90% to 100% of what I think it should be. And the more I let this other person do this, the better they're going to get little by little.
Right.
But what pieces am I going to have to pick up along the way when things go awry? So yeah, there are days, depending on the TA and how long I've had them for, and usually it is just one semester. So usually during the first week, I get them doing a few things that are small just so that the students recognize them as another classroom authority. And then usually second or third week, I have them start planning like an activity. And the activity I don't really care about. I want them in front of the classroom kind of feeling that, and I do give them feedback.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the semester, they'll take on a full hour. It's an hour-long session. They'll take on a full hour at a time, and we'll usually plan it together. But then again, like I've been teaching this particular class for over a decade.
Yeah.
So planning an hour with someone who doesn't have any teacher training and doing that well is a lot more than just doing the damn thing myself, right? And the same thing goes for creating, the same thing, it just piles on.
It's what you were saying, Joe, teaching two classes. You're teaching your Spanish students and you're doing a teacher education class.
Yeah. And there are conflicting goals because you have to be serving both of them at the same time, but you cannot serve the one unless you are completely serving that one, because for all the instruction that you give and all the patience and room to grow that you give to your TA, all of that, almost by definition, mathematically, is being subtracted from the experience of your students who were there to learn the language.
Yeah, from you at the clippity-cloppy pace that you are able to bring them through. Yeah.
Because it's college.
Very
You've got
interesting.
a certain amount of curriculum that you have to get through by the end of a particular semester that's you've agreed upon. This is how far we have to get.
Yep. And it's a standardized class. So like I'm at a big enough institution so that, you know, and I supervise all the sections, right? I'm in charge of all the grad students teaching all the sections and all the faculty teaching all the sections. I'm in charge of the whole shebang, right? But I teach one section myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's tied up in a lot of stuff because it's also standardized. So if we go off the rails, one section's going to be a little bit off. It matters because we have a lot of stuff that students do online in sync with the class. And I mean, it is hyper standardized. And I hate to say it. I don't think it's hyper standardized to the extent that the course doesn't have any soul left.
Yeah, good.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
But it's not one of those things where it's like, hey, if you get through chapter 7, that's great. Hopefully we'll get through chapter 9. Like the exams are standardized. You got to get there.
Yes.
Everybody's taking the same test. And nobody else has a TA in any of the other sections?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
No.
So you're the only one with a TA, but you're supervising graduate students.
Correct. So I observe them once a year and give them feedback too, but I visit their classes where they're the instructors of record.
Okay.
Okay.
How is that managed? Are you the one who actually supports them all the way through in their teaching? Are they the TAs that you've already had in your class that have now graduated to teaching their own classes?
They all have different kind of tracks. When students in our institution come in, if they have a master's degree, they have to take a course that basically clears them. It's like very basic, like pedagogical information, including about language learning. And they take it, like they front load it at the very end of summer or the very beginning of the first teaching semester. So those students have something. It's not
pretty
a lot.
enlightened. That's something. That's great.
So, it's certainly not nothing. And we have people who come in who take it really seriously, oftentimes, not always. Some people very academic in the sense of like, oh, the research is what I do, but that's not
Yeah.
typical. And so it varies from instructor to instructor, but the overall teaching that we have is a pretty high standard, I would say. We have an orientation that reviews our general approaches but it's also not, we're not in a teaching institution here either.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I'm trying to get a picture of this. How many grad students do you have who are teaching courses in your department in Spanish?
45, 40.
And you're supervising all of them?
We have a 3-semester sequence for our undergraduates or for the lower division. And I'm in charge of one of those semesters. And typically, I would say I supervise between 15 and 20 sections per semester. But some of those happen to also be faculty who are lecturers. So I'm in charge of the curriculum for them. But if they're doing something wacky, it's not really on me.
Yeah.
So how do you supervise well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is what resources might be available that you could gather around your TA so that you're not the one who's actually doing the work? What supports do other grad students need? And what do those supports have to do with your TA? If you understand what I mean, how could they be applied to your TA, or are they applied to the TA? Is a TA thrown in with all the other grad students?
Yeah, they are.
So what does the supervision of them look like as a cohort, as the whole bunch of them?
I supervise to make sure they're doing their jobs during the semester. If students have complaints about the course or concerns, the students come to me.
Yeah.
If there's some kind of conflict, I help them figure it out. If a student has missed a month and they're saying what do I do with this? I'm the person they go to. If they're having a personal crisis and they're I don't know how to manage, I'm missing all this time, I direct them to more an HR person. So the graduate students who are instructors of record get an evaluation at the end of the semester, which is kind of analogous to the teaching assistants, but it shows that there's more things that they have to do. They need to finalize grades and submit a grade book and that kind of thing. So the teaching assistant is more all of those things in training a little bit. The teaching assistant does take that course that I mentioned, the pedagogy language learning course.
Yeah.
While being the teaching assistant or beforehand?
While.
Okay.
Well, usually while. It depends on their credit hours. So generally speaking, when they come in their first semester, they're a TA, they take it. But generally speaking, the new ones are TAs for 2 semesters.
Cool.
Wow. So what we've kind of sketched out is a couple direct contradictions. There's the contradiction between the institutions bestowing upon you a favor, which is to say a TA who's supposed to make your life easier, and the fact that TA is actually there to learn how to teach, which means that there is no way it's going to make your life easier because you're going to be teaching that teacher how to teach. I've been in teacher education for many years. It's not easy. And then there's a second conflict, which is a result of the first conflict, which is the more you do one job, which is to teach the TA, the less you do the other job, which is to teach your undergraduate students. So would you say, Sarah, that that's the issue for you, is how to manage these conflicts?
That's the issue of the non-emotional part.
Which is just the first one, the first of the 3.
Yeah. That's the issue of the non-emotional part, which is an interesting issue.
Yeah, it is.
And I've thought over years about saying okay, well, maybe my TA should create one activity. And I mean, I don't want to overemphasize my dislike for isolated activities that we just drop in randomly. But let's say they come in, they have one activity, and maybe they try it 3 different times on a Monday because there's 3 different sections running. So there's things like that creatively speaking, I could be okay, this is the week where you do the same thing 3 times on Monday and the same different thing 3 times on Friday. But then it's well, is that the TA's job? I'm requiring them to work outside of my class time. Do they have class conflicts? Are the other teachers who's classes, I'm hi, can we practice in your class? What do they have to think about it? I've also had TAs observe a lot. Observations is part of that pedagogy course. I think it's fairly limited. It might be 1 or 2 they have to do. But I've also thought about saying to my TA, listen, go observe 1 a week.
Yeah.
And maybe I should do more than just think about it, because it doesn't seem that extreme. It just would be asking them to do something at times that they would have to schedule where there might be some conflicts because they're taking a full course load.
Yeah. What about your conceiving of the TA as being an observer in your classroom who is actually learning from you, it's possible that you could give the TA an assignment every week, which is this week you're going to be looking for this element of my teaching.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're going to be writing that stuff down. You're going to be taking notes. Let me show you how to take notes when you're observing. And we're going to be looking for these things. And then your curriculum, which you can be rolling out every semester, is going to be the same semester after semester because it's a standardized curriculum. Your first effort would have to be just figuring out what those things are that you want them to be looking for and then sequencing them so that it makes sense. And then by the end, I would say, TA, you have to write a paper about your philosophy of learning and your philosophy of teaching based on what you've observed in my class and any other observations that you choose to make with other teachers. That would be less controlled by you because you don't know really what's going on in those. But I would say the outcome would be, I want to see your philosophy of learning, and then I want to see a philosophy of teaching that matches what you think learning is.
Mm-hmm.
And I want evidence from what you saw in my classroom.
So I love that in theory. I think there would be a lot of pushback.
Wait, from the TAs?
Probably. I mean, so for me to assign them a paper as though I were running a course.
Okay, except that you are.
Philosophically, I understand. And then what am I going to do with that paper? So they hand me an 8 to 10 page paper. I have 20 essays for my English course to grade. Like, for me to pour over that paper and give them what they deserve back, like, I don't know if I'm willing to do that at the end of the semester either.
Just say no. So here's another thought. At the end of the semester, you invite them out for a beer and you just chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you could give them the weekly assignments though, right?
Yes, absolutely. That makes more sense to me because we see each other a lot. It could be like a small paragraph here and there, like just send me an email, letting me know what you think of like what you saw here. Absolutely. But to turn it into something that feels like a course, especially when no others, because I'm one of, I think, 4 people in the department who has a TA. For the lower division. The upper division, I think, has a few as well. I think I'd be like the person who assigns papers.
You'd be an outlier.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I could stand behind it, but in practice, I think I would have to defend it, and then I would have to read the damn thing.
Yes.
Right. No, you're making work for yourself.
I'm convinced.
And so everybody who is a TA in your class eventually, during their course of study at the university, is going to go on to teach their own course, right? Or a section of a lower level.
Yes.
In Spanish or another department?
There's a little bit of overlap between departments if we don't quite have enough positions. There's departments that we kind of send people to and vice versa.
Okay.
Sometimes people leave the program too, but generally speaking, that's the idea.
My wife studied Russian, and she was only able to teach as a graduate student, I think maybe once, because there were way more graduate students than there were available sections of Russian to put everybody in. But when I was studying, it was the opposite problem. We had lots and lots of studies. So that was how my wife actually made a living. She also speaks Spanish. So she would teach extra sections in the Spanish department. And that's the way it was when I was in graduate school, 30 years ago. So what is the dynamic at your institution? Are there more sections than you have graduate students for typically? Or do you have to spread the sections around among graduate students and kind of make an effort to make sure everybody gets one?
Everyone gets one. I don't know the magic end of it, of these people coming in, but when we accept graduate students, they will have a teaching position with us.
For the whole time they're there?
Yep.
Okay.
There is like a fellowship year. There are years where they're supported financially without working. And once in a while, there's like another extenuating situation where somebody might have a grant or this or that. But if they're a graduate student, we have a spot for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a guaranteed spot so that the planning is done in that grounded way.
Yeah.
But there's only one of you. So there's only one TA-ship people can have with you.
Yep.
And is this something that they compete for?
No. Okay. So it's a little confusing and I don't have like the bird's eye view of all of it. So we have a lot of students who come in and don't ever need to be a TA because they have the graduate hours to jump right into being the instructor of record.
Okay.
So every year, I'd say the number of students that come in who don't need to be a TA because they already have a master's degree is way higher than the number of students who come in with just a bachelor's degree who are first getting their master's. It's the master's students because we can't put an instructor of record who doesn't have a degree that's any different from the undergraduates they're
An
teaching.
advanced degree.
Right. Yeah.
So, and once in a while, there was like a perceived, maybe like a slight miscalculation, and we'll have a few too many TAs. That actually has happened this year. And people who don't usually have them get them, or we give them to a department who's in need of them, but they do get a position.
Yeah. So I think if I try to put myself into your shoes so far of what we've talked about, the hairiest part I can imagine is trying to make it feel to this graduate student like they are involved enough in the actual teaching without having them elbows deep in my damn teaching.
Yeah.
That's the main conflict here. And I wonder how free you might be to reimagine the TA ship as much more along observational lines than on participation lines. Like rather than try to make available class periods and activities for this person to supervise, just sort of think of their role more as Betsy suggested, you are an observer and you're going to talk to me about what you see me doing and the dynamic, but you're really not here to quote unquote help me. You're here to observe me and learn from me.
Yeah.
Which also might apply to the uncomfortable dynamic. I'd like to hear more about this, but if your TA is observing you and fundamentally evaluating you, which is happening either quietly, tacitly, or explicitly in the observation notes or in your discussion of the observations, you at least in having your TA observe you explicitly can defend your choices. You can explain when they say, well, I didn't understand why you did X, Y, and Z. You know they're judging you back there, and that's very uncomfortable for you. But for you to be able to know every week that you get to say, okay, why do you suppose I did that? What might you think, I was doing? And then I will confirm or deny. But tell us more about the dynamic.
Okay, so two things. And I'm going to tell you the one about what Joe was saying first about the observations that occurred to me too about it doesn't necessarily need to be about me. It could be, hey, during this lesson, these are the 3 students who I want you to focus on.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Check out their work, check out their responses, check out their questions. And so it could be like kind of a student-oriented set of questions as well.
Or activity-oriented. Here's the activity. Tell me how it worked, how it didn't work. How would you design it differently?
For sure. Now, the second thing, though, there, Betsy, is it's not an uncomfortable dynamic of like, oh, I did something and I think they're like judging me on it. I mean, that happens sometimes, and I think that used to bother me more than it did. And on some level, like I have a little ego where I'm like, well, they're kind of missing out on the genius of that particular student. I don't really care as far as like, oh, I hope they know.
That is good.
But here's the thing. It reminds me of that video that was circulating on social media, 10 years ago. It was there to kind of make a point about how people work and how crowds work. And it was one person at some kind of concert or festival who was
started
like bouncing
dancing
around and dancing by himself.
Oh, yeah.
The point was that, okay, there's one guy dancing by himself. It's the second person who joined him that did something magic.
Exactly.
All of a sudden you're like, oh, we're doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That bravery of that second person. The TA is by second person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So not only is he a random second person in a crowd, he's the designated second person in my classroom. So if I'm the person jumping around and everyone's kind of like, well, wait a minute, where's this activity going? Why is she being so quiet and not saying anything? Is she waiting for us to do something? Like, this is an odd activity, which I tend to do things to kind of, not intentionally weird, but my class is like inherently run of the mill, right? So if I'm creating space for students to step in, he's that second person. And if I'm not filling the space, students are going to look to him.
Yeah.
And whether or not he does something, his whole body language, his facial expressions alters what might have happened otherwise.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
He's your second collaborative person, but I suppose he could also be your first mutineer.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he doesn't join in, and I'm thinking now of cultural differences, that discomfort in like, what are you doing? That's not how we teach. You're supposed to be the authority. You're supposed to be like, click, click, click. Yes, no, wrong. Not fun, not dancing around in the front of the classroom. I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, and kind of maybe like deferential, respectful, but kind of like waiting, pausing, not any more sure than the students are.
Yeah.
And they can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
right.
well, God damn it.
Yeah.
Like if it were just me and the students, it would be private and it would be like this thing that could emerge.
Well, you would be a norm setter,
Mhm.
right? But with a second person there's a pause on the norm because
Yeah.
there's another authority figure that people are waiting to. Wow, that's such an interesting dynamic. I love that analogy.
And let me be clear, this isn't like an individual, oh, my TA right now does this issue.
Right,
It's
exactly.
Like, it's the dynamic and it changes a little based on the person, but it's just a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, super interesting. You know what? You need a mug. You need a symbol that lets everybody know you are a certified relationship warrior. Or, okay, this is nicer, wellness ambassador. Whichever, both. Bottom line being, this symbol will tell people, I know what you're trying, don't do it. You just lift up the mug and gaze at your person over the beautiful viney graphic with the words, stay in your effing garden, all intertwined. Message sent. You know what else you need? To take a meditative workshop on blending your own tea, which one of my current TSG teachers did recently. She put together a gorgeous blend she called Staying in My Garden. Having a cup of Staying in My Garden tea in your TTE mug that reminds everybody to stay in your effing garden sounds like the beginning of a beautiful relationship. To do this, go to my store on the TTE homepage.
And every TA is going to bring, obviously, their own suite of tendencies, abilities, strengths, weaknesses, which is kind of the maddening part of it, is that you've got to reinvent this according to who your TA is every semester.
Yeah.
Like, how much can I count on Jorge to be my partner in goofballness during the goofball activities?
Yeah.
He does that really well, but he's not as serious about preparation as some other TA.
Mm-hmm.
And do you meet with them weekly or anything like that outside of a class?
I used to be so good. When I first got this job, I was like, we're having an hour meeting every week at this set time. I want you to come 10 minutes before every class so you can get the rundown, stay 10 minutes after. And it was as it should be. I mean, I have a background in education, right? So like, I know what worked for me with my cooperating teacher and what that looked like. And then over the years, I'm like, well, I actually don't have an extra 2 hours to meet with you. Not to mention, like, then I'm training you to grade this stuff in a way that's like accurate. And then I have to go look through, like, it snowballs, right?
Yeah.
So back to that dynamic, though, that's the crux of it. And then may I ask, when I say one more little anecdote, this one's like a really concrete one, which is sort of the same thing, but in a more concrete way. This was now probably 8 or 9 years ago. I had a vocabulary activity prepped. I had a whole bunch of little slips of paper, and students had to kind of figure out how to pair themselves up based on what is said on their slip of paper. But it was like a puzzle. So it wasn't just a straight up, like, who has the same word as you? There was a little bit of like a puzzle thing happening. And it was one of those things that takes you like 2 hours to prep, and then it's students like 3 minutes to do. And you use it again and again and again. Maybe it works because it's fun. So I had this prepped and it was ready to go. And I handed it up to students. And like, I explained to them what they were doing. But then I was like, y'all are going to do it. Like, if you don't know what something means, like, there was people who were in charge of helping to decipher. There were people who could use dictionaries versus not use dictionaries. It was like a group effort, right?
Nice.
And the TA took over. Not took over like, okay, everybody, this is how we're going to do it. But little by little, the TA would look at somebody's paper and kind of tell them what it meant and kind of help them find their person and connect them. And little by little, everyone was going to the TA and he was doing all the work.
Yeah.
That's
a really concrete example of like, okay, if I'm letting students have space, the TA might fill it.
Yeah. No.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I find myself saying a lot lately, like, my God, the shit that I have to say out loud. I really had to say that out loud. Don't do it. You speak Spanish. Like, let them. The other thing I do all the time is I bring up this whole notion that they do on the East Coast. There's one car trying to turn left and another car in front of it is also going to turn left. But he says, well, you know what? You come out.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll wait.
What the hell?
And they wave each other through. It's maddening.
I did not know other people felt this way.
It gets people killed.
I call it confusing kindness.
And it's also like this like deferential waspy thing of like, oh, like I'm not taking up any space, like you go.
Right.
But like whenever I have to drive on the East Coast, I'm like, oh, this thing again.
Yeah. Yes, just follow the rule. You have the right of way.
Exactly.
Just go. There's a stop sign here. I have to sit here. And when it's like, oh, you go ahead. Really? You don't mind? No, that's fine. I have all the time in the world. Really, that would help me out, actually. So thanks very much. And in the meantime,
Exactly.
here comes me barreling through. I'm not turning. And I tell my students all the time when I draw that situation out on the board. And then I say, okay, so when the person next to you is struggling to understand my question to them, and you just lean over to them and tell them what it means in English, you did this because you're a nice person and you're trying to help them. But what you have done is you have stolen from them the opportunity to figure this out.
Exactly.
To a TA, you've got to say, like, do not pull them through the mud. You have to let them
Slog.
Yes.
And that one's a good example because that particular thing, it's concrete enough for me to say, don't do that next time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Whereas the
exactly.
unspoken, like I can't say, oh, your body language indicated that you weren't feeling confident in the space I was giving students. Like that's a harder thing to direct.
Yeah.
Your listeners, Betsy and Joe, need to know that this topic got me so worked up that I had to take my sweater off.
Which topic? The topic about the drivers? The confusing
The driving.
kindness?
The
Yes.
lecture.
There's a time to be nice. When you get to the gas station, hold the door open for the person behind you. Get it out of your
Exactly.
system that way, but not
when you're
we're at a
driving
stop
lethal
sign.
weapons. Exactly.
Okay, I don't want to go too far off topic, but I do have a counterpoint.
Ah, okay.
Because my parents are on the East Coast, and fairly recently, I want to say this November, I was up there. I was in the car with my mom, and I complained about this very thing. And she said, well, around here, some of the roads are so narrow, and people are parking on both sides of them, that the person taking the left actually wants the space that you're in.
Exactly. Yeah,
Like,
I've seen that too.
Sometimes there's a space thing.
Yeah.
I still don't like it,
Yeah.
but I do think that's sometimes what's going on.
Counterpoint to the counterpoint, people have been driving in New England for decades, and this feels like a new phenomenon. I grew up in New England. I don't remember this phenomenon. So there are some people who can actually pull in a two-way street with a car parked or whatever, stopped.
Right.
Anyway, I just want to say, just getting down to the level of psychodynamics, how interesting, Joe, that you have to say this out loud to students. But what's true is that whether or not they're trying to be kind or they're just trying to, but they're uncomfortable with what they perceive is happening in that classroom, which is this kid's being put on the spot. Like if I were in that kid's shoes, blah, 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 blah. So on the same token, Sarah, your TA, you see their discomfort in their bodies. Wouldn't it be interesting to make this a pedagogical issue? That is, you are physically uncomfortable when certain things happen. Like, I want to know, TA, what makes you uncomfortable? Like, here's what I want you to be looking for every single week. What makes you uncomfortable? What makes you feel like, oh shit? And talk to them about what it means to regulate themselves when that is happening. Because every teacher needs to learn what you learned, Joe, which is to say, I need to say this out loud. And I need to make it very explicit to my students. You don't get to help each other. That's not kindness. That's actually robbing. You're being a burglar. And to normalize for the students that redefinition of kindness.
Yeah.
Right? And you need to normalize for your TAs a redefinition of discomfort or a redefinition of what teaching is.
Yeah. I think there's two other, I don't know if they're mutually exclusive, but I do think in the case of students helping students or my TA helping students, I think it's a recognition of the social pressure that people feel when, and I mean, I guess this is a different side of the same discomfort coin, but the culture is the culture. The social culture is the social culture. So maybe I'm not uncomfortable, but maybe I'm like, oh man. I mean, I guess that is a form of discomfort, but recognizing the fact that maybe the culture of the classroom, this isn't a pointed comment at you, Joe, but like the culture of the classroom isn't yet such that people cannot know openly.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But it's figuring out what's going on there for the classroom
Love
system.
that.
100%.
The other thing to do with my TA, and perhaps students in the situation Joe is explaining too, but definitely for my TA, when he was giving those answers to those students, it might be a way to show his worth.
Yes, right?
Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
So this is why I think it would be really interesting to ask the TA what's making them uncomfortable. There are many sources. You're saying that, Sarah. There are multiple sources, all of them legitimate, all of them fascinating, and you'll get different answers from different TAs. Bottom line is they got to deal with their discomfort, whatever that source is. And Joe, you could have this conversation with your students. If they can identify the discomfort and label it and then notice it when it's happening. And if you can say, you know what, when I see that look on your face, I think that's probably when you're feeling that discomfort. So like, what can I say to you to actually help you regulate again, kind of smooth it out so that you're not affecting the dynamic? And to be talking openly with your TA, Sarah, about co-constructing a classroom culture.
Yeah.
That transcends national cultures or personal cultures, but it's co-created by everyone in the room. And damn it, the teacher is the main node. You should be the main node in that system. And that TA, if it's going to work, needs to be on board with you. But that's a conversation. And that, to me, that's a profound conversation. That's real teacher talking. That's like, let's talk about how we co-create a reality together and the ways that we pull against each other or pull with each other if we're going to be in the same room together.
Yeah. What percentage of your TAs would you say have been native speakers of Spanish?
Maybe 60 to 70%. Definitely more than half, but not extreme.
Yeah. When the TA is not a native speaker of Spanish, they don't bring to the table this same really irreplaceable and valuable thing, which is to have a live human being there who, well, let's see how he says this. How do they say the thing that we're talking about, that we're teaching? Is this how you guys do this in El Salvador? And he might say, well, actually, no, it's not. Like, oh, really? Just little side quests, little commentaries. Well, and in case my pronunciation isn't quite authentic, what do you think? How would you say this? He could sort of serve as a mirror for yourself, he, she, in the same way that, like, I would like you to observe this aspect of my teaching and we'll talk about it after class.
So reciprocating the help.
Reimagine that role.
The expertise.
For them. Yes, that is the expertise that is really valuable and where they get to feel valuable. They get to feel valued.
Yes, exactly.
You've got to show them how it is done in this particular way and be this friendly face they're used to seeing who takes the fear out of it. It's like, well, that's just Jorge. I can do it too. And he'll coach you through it. Things like that, rather than having him be someone who has to either prove that he deserves to be there by, no, I will show you how this should be done. I will show you my expertise. Give that need to feel valuable an outlet.
Yeah. I should probably capitalize on that more in a somewhat planned way beyond moments that just come up, because that does happen sometimes. In fact, I don't look at the rate my teachers comments anymore.
Oh, yeah. Wise.
I had a comment one time saying her Spanish can't be very good. She has to ask her TA how to say so many things.
So
Very
what if I did that semester, that one student interpreted it to be me not being sure.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Now, that's a possible misinterpretation, but if I frame it up front correctly, it demonstrates all of the variation of Spanish, including the validity of my way of doing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have them at writing too and say, hey, the student teacher wrote a paragraph, find 2 things that you would say differently. Like, you don't need to read the whole thing. Find 2 things you would say differently. Like the things that you think would make this the best. So like that kind of thing where it isn't like an actual grading of like on a rubric, blah, 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 but it's just like feedback, back to students is useful too. But I think you're right, Joe, that in the context of class, I can find ways to spot kind of the linguistic richness that a native speaker comes with.
Yeah. I've had to deal with the same thing because I teach Spanish and I'm not a native speaker of Spanish either. And I don't know how long ago it was, but I kind of forgave myself for not knowing everything. And you just get to say, one of the ways I frame it is this is both the coolest and the worst thing about learning Spanish is that you will never know all of it. There was every time I talked to somebody from a new place, at some point in the conversation, I go, oh, that's how you guys do that. Huh. I've never heard anybody do it that way before. Spanish is infinitely varied that way. And you can look at it as like, oh, there it is. There's another thing that everybody gets to see me not know. Or you can say, oh my God, that is so cool. I've never seen that before. Hey, everybody, feel my delight and join in my delight at seeing this new way that's, like it's going to happen. So you can look at it as a good thing, or you can look at it as, a bad thing.
Right.
And I think framing it that way, this is relating to the power differential issue, just to be explicit about that to frame it explicitly for your students so that you can narrow the range of possibility for misinterpretation of your drawing on your TA, to be very clear, to say the kind of thing that Joe just said. You guys, no native speaker knows everything. I mean, I'm a native speaker of English. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm not going to say it all right. So I feel as though that could be really fun. And it feels like this framing that Joe's suggesting would be a way for you to put your arm around your TA and say, this is my partner. I need this partner here to be helping me do these specific things. So you are so lucky, undergraduates in my class, because you're going to hear from me, who's your teacher, and from him or them or her, who is a native speaker. And I'm not. That doesn't mean I don't know how to speak Spanish, but it means that we're going to be teaming up to give you the fullest picture that we can, the two of us can. If we had 3 other people, you'd get an even fuller picture, right? But you're never going to get the full picture. That's a really nice way of kind of doing Aikido with the power differential. Yeah. Using it to your advantage, but maintaining the authority in the classroom over how we're going to interpret this power differential.
Yeah, something I also say to my students, and this is something I say in English, because that's the other thing too. A lot of these conversations is the decision of like, am I going to go into English to have this heart to heart? Is that I'm perhaps the best role model for them as far as being a language learner, right? The chances of any of them ever getting Spanish that's more advanced than mine is pretty low, unless there's somebody who's like kind of in the wrong section or they commit to it in some kind of way that I did.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So for most of them, they should actually be looking at me as an imperfect by native speaker standards model. Like, this is what a successful learner of Spanish looks like. Look, I'm teaching at a really well-regarded university. It's not a secret that my Spanish is imperfect.
Yeah,
I'm your role model right here. Like, don't get it confused.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So you could drop me in any Spanish-speaking country like a mailbag, and I would just pick myself up, dust myself off. My heart rate wouldn't even go up. I'd just go up to the first person and say, where am I? How do I get out of here? And I'd be fine. And that is huge.
Exactly.
I will never be a native speaker of any other language. It cannot happen. But man, look at me. Look at me go. You're right. That is a very interesting role model. And the other guy, whoever it is, your TA who is from El Salvador, they're like, oh, what a treat. We're going to see how this is done in El Salvador. What
exactly.
Valuable thing to have here. You get both. And I remember when I was in Germany, one of my professors was actually Czech, and he had moved to East Germany when he was like 13. And now he had become a professor of German literature. And he always used to tell us, if you have a question about German grammar, don't ask a German. Because they don't know.
Right? Exactly.
They won't know how to explain it to you. They'll give you the wrong rule. Find somebody who had to learn German and ask them.
Yep, exactly. I mean, and again, knowing and not knowing, like setting up a classroom where not knowing is absolutely expected, because in fact, that's the reality. Like, you guys don't know a whole shitload. And guess what? I don't either. I mean, I not know a shitload too. This is what's exciting. And as a language learner myself, who is really terrified of speaking because I don't want to make mistakes, I'm a perfectionist, to be learning a language in a classroom where I'm allowed to fumble and actually where I can normalize not knowing and saying something kind of dumb or infantile, but trying, would possibly have helped me. I love what you were saying, Sarah, about, look, not knowing is normal. And we're going to model that here too. We're going to make it okay. And I think that's another way of framing it to your TA. Not knowing is normal. So back the fuck off. Don't worry if they don't know. You have to let them be. I have another question I just want to say. Do the TAs do any tutoring? Do they get to work with the students outside of class?
They hold office hours. And that's, I think, a space where, depending on the TA, students take advantage or not. And I think oftentimes students feel more comfortable going when it's a native speaker of English.
It's intimidating.
Well, perhaps it's intimidating. I wouldn't for sure. But a lot of times my TAs, their English isn't super polished.
Yeah.
So there's a strong kind of language barrier there. Because the TA...
Ironically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So students might actually feel like they don't quite know how to communicate in a clear way with this person who ironically has a lot of language to offer.
Yeah.
Which also just gives us a little glimpse again into the potential psyche of the TAs. That if, as you were saying, Joe, if they want to feel effective and valued and authoritative like experts, and they're noticing that the students avoid them because of their lack of expertise in English, I mean, it's interesting to think about how to set up the relationship between the TA and the students so that there's more of a script or a way in that the two of them can co-enact that makes the TA more useful to the students and then maybe make the TA feel better about themselves.
Just this semester, after doing this for, however many semesters, I've started a different kind of beginning of class sequence where students are coming in and doing something right away. And they're doing it in kind of random groups that are assigned as they come in. Instead of waiting till the bell starts and then like getting into groups and losing those 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And so the groups are different and random every day, but the TA is always going to be with the same group in the same place. The students are going to change. But, maybe the TA group, the students who end up with the TA every day, maybe they don't have quite the same activity. Maybe there's some TA interview questions or some like basic, like super easy conversation starters just to like break the ice. So you've talked to this guy in a small group face to face.
Nice.
And for the TA too.
Yes, absolutely.
I think about you all the time because in our teaching and learning class, I remember at one point you had us in small groups early in the semester. And I was in a small group with 2 or 3 other people in my cohort. And like all of a sudden you were like a new teacher to us. You like plopped down next to us and you were like there in the conversation. Right. I think about that all the time, how like, oh, here she is. Because you have like this delightful brashness to you. Like you're comfortable and you're kind of unapologetic and it helps. Right. And I think of you when I sit down with a group, like I try to embody that confidence of like, yeah, I belong here. Like I'm not observing you quietly. I'm part of this now. Like, let me in.
Yes, I'm interested in what you're thinking.
Yeah, I like that more than let me in. I'm interested in what you're thinking. But a TA doesn't have that skill set per se. And so, but having the students come to him with some questions is a way into that interaction between them, if not developing the skill set for them like at all.
Yeah.
Love it. So basically creating a wedge into the relationship.
We did a renovation of our front room complex. It's one big open space, and we knocked down a wall. And our contractor told us, well, I'm pretty sure this is a bearing wall, so we're going to have to erect this big pillar in the middle of the space, and that's going to break it up. But when you have a flaw like that, what I like to do is take a flaw and make it a feature. Like we will surround the pillar with this beautiful, ornate bookshelf/cabinet structure, right? And then he actually knocked the wall down and realized, oh no, it's not a bearing wall. Okay, we can have
we want that anyway.
Yeah, we got it anyway because then we really like the way it looked. That stuck with me ever since. Like take this flaw and make it a feature, and then nobody notices the flaw. And maybe in that way, like you can have the TA who is almost like a plant in the room with all the other. It's like, this guy's clearly a spy. Look at him. He's older than we are. He comes from a different place, speaks a different language. I don't know how to look at him. I don't know. Is he a teacher? Is he one of us? Is he on my side? Is he on her side? And like draw attention to him or her. And, like, okay, we are going to have, it's Jorge Day. We are going to sit and learn everything there is about Jorge that we know how to say.
Yeah.
And then we're going to involve him in all this stuff. He kind of becomes something that they lose their fear over.
I mean, I love the idea of having him stand in front of the group and have you, Sarah, prime them to ask him certain questions and then just keep developing their ability to ask questions about him in the small groups in the entrance tickets. But if that doesn't work, I do love the idea of letting the kids know and letting Jorge know. Entrance ticket, if you're in a group with Jorge, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be getting better and better and better at having a conversation with a native speaker. Because that's another thing. There's every reason for the students to be intimidated by him.
Oh, yeah.
If I were sitting in a Chinese class and there was a Chinese speaker in the back, I'd be like, fuck, no, I'm not talking to you. You're going to talk too fast. I'm not going to understand you. I'm going to say it all wrong. I'm going to pretend I'm not even going to look you in the eye.
You can judge me.
Right?
Yeah.
So isolating for him.
And you're not going to office hours.
I sure as hell am not.
Unless his English is extremely good.
Right?
Right? Because then you don't have to worry about, am I going to have to speak Chinese in order to
Right.
talk to this guy. I'm scared to do that.
I'm learning, right? And I think it's another interesting thing to be saying to the students is, look, you and Jorge are having conversations. An assignment, drop in every week to his office hours and just repeat this conversation. Ask these questions, just 5 minutes. Just every single one of you guys has to do it with Jorge every week, if not twice a week or whatever. Practice your skills, practice. That's another way of developing, because they can be laughing with each other. They can be like, oh, and they can be getting better at speaking with each other. Just saying, your TAs need relationships, not just with you, but with every student and vice versa. So anything you can do to strengthen that foundation, I think is going to make it a whole lot easier for your TA to go with you, to follow you when they're not just managing their own fear, right? And isolation and feeling of maybe not fitting and the normal insecurities that come with any grad student on the planet.
Right.
I'd like to end by asking Sarah what your takeaway is or what your takeaways are. I have a couple that I wrote down, but you're the one we're trying to support.
Yeah. I think I'm feeling excited about a few things I can try. I like the idea of giving my TA something to think about or reflect on so he can report back to me or they can report back to me. Be it a way I'm doing something that he's feeling in a certain situation, something he observes in students, something that he would want to try based on what he saw. So like giving that kind of mini assignment, mostly in the form of reflection during class time, to him is a way to keep him engaged in reflecting. I also wouldn't mind really, having talked to you guys, thinking more seriously about having him go to other sections as his schedule permits. Also, that idea of discomfort, like what makes us fill space when it's not really our turn.
Right.
Figuring out ways to have that conversation as something that comes up in these observations or little mini assignments I could give them that is more like emotionally oriented instead of like, how did these 3 students seem to do with this type of prompt? I like the turning a flaw into a feature to finding that, you said wedge, right, into the relationship. And I mean, I spend a fair amount of work in the way I run class, cultivating a connection, like a community. But I do think I leave my TA out to some degree. I do turn to them and say, wait, would you say it like this? Like, is there a different way to say it? But it's kind of like token moments and not necessarily like an integral part of the design. So figuring out a way, because I so carefully kind of weave these like first few weeks together for us to be like different people see each other in different moments. But the TA isn't always part of that constellation. Although I have to say now that the entrance ticket one group will always be with the TA. I've already initiated that. So I'm going to run with that in a few different ways to get him more in the mix and see what happens there. I like that idea a lot.
I totally want to hear how it goes. So please be in touch. Let us know because we can report back out. This is how TSGs work, actually, that you have just outlined your plans of action that you're excited about, and often that's how TSGs end also. But the beauty of a real TSG is that you and I, we'd all be meeting again next week, and you would report back, at least as far as you can, of what has changed given your plans of action, your experiments. So please do let us know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what form your podcast would or can take, but we could talk at the end of the semester at one point, perhaps, and see, because it's kind of a long form undertaking, right?
Yeah, it is a long form undertaking.
So I will certainly let you know, and maybe we can talk again at one point as well.
Love it.
Fantastic.
Well, Joe, I want to ask you, any takeaways, any axiom? I mean, this is how we end always. What's your axiom?
The concept that I'm walking away with the most, having listened to you describe how this dynamic works, is that one should, and sometimes it's hard, make sure that the expectations for what you're being asked to do are realistic and fit with the format in which these things are happening. Like you have such a hard circle to square in teaching a bunch of undergraduates while at the same time teaching someone else how to teach undergraduates. Because if I'm teaching you how to, bake a cake, I'm going to get graded on the quality of my cake. And you don't know how to make cakes. So I don't want to let you too much in on my cake making. That's tough. And I was excited to imagine you, like, for your own self, maybe reimagining this as, okay, they want me to be teaching him. I am gonna. but it's going to be teaching him through involving him to the extent that makes sense in what I do, but not letting him do what I do. You want me to have a TA? I'll do it. Great. It's not going to be what you're imagining because that doesn't make sense for my format, you know?
But he will learn, or they will learn really well. As you say, the weaving, it'll be so fun to hear.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited to follow up with y'all.
Yeah. I'm just going to share my axiom, which is don't fucking turn left.
Hey, that was gonna be mine.
I stole it.
Take the fucking left.
Just fucking
Right.
turn left.
Yeah.
Don't wave me out. Who are
Yeah.
you to wave me out?
Yeah, just fucking turn left. All right. You guys, thank you so much for your time and your energy. I just love you both, and I feel so lucky to know you and to be able to chat about stuff that I love chatting about. TTE is a Podvision production, created and hosted by me, Betsy Burris, and co-hosted by Joe Johnson. Production and audience development support from Julian Androkaya and Andrea Koskaj. Crucial editing by Brad Wells. And the music, which makes me smile and dance every time I hear it, by Tom Burris of Jabbering Trout. Thanks one and all. If you like this episode, text it to a friend. And if you haven't already, sign up for my Substack, where you can become a paid subscriber and get all kinds of goodies, including exclusive podcast episodes that will change your life. That's teachingthroughemotions.com. Thank you for listening.
It's all true.